words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart to be acceptable in your sight. May all truth be heard and truth be spoken. Amen. How many of you folk like to climb up high when you were young? Has anyone climbed the escarpment? Or how about a rock climbing wall? Has anyone done that? Wow. It's so exhilarating being up high. I was a climber when I was small, and I can still hear Mrs. Flanagan, who lived next door, shouting out her pantry window, "You kids, get down out of that tree!" Of course, she had her best interests in mind because she attended to some of our scrapes and bruises a various time or two. In every child's heart, there seems to be a yearning towards the sky, or to feel what it's like to fly. My son, Jeff, recently sent me a picture of our granddaughter, Hazel. She's 7 years old, and about as precocious as they come, and fearless. She stands atop Mount Burundi, near her home in Lilongwe, Malawi, Africa. She perches boldly at the edge, overlooking the beautiful panorama of fields and valleys spread out below her. The brisk, cooling wind ruffles her silky flaxen hair. Hazel's stance is confident. A small, triumphant smile is on her lips, and she looks out over the precipice with courage, empowered by the promise of life before her, and also secure in the knowledge that her dad is just behind her, protectively looking on. And this is Father's Day, and I forgot to mention Happy Father's Day to those who are here. Mount Burundi is a pilgrimage mountain, and like all high places on earth, it has a steady stream of wayfarers who toil up the winding, rocky paths to its summit. It's a grueling hour-and-a-half journey upwards. Jeff tells me that the mountain draws people from all faiths and walks of life. You never come down the same way as you go up. Long ago, the first king of Israel, King Solomon, he penned these words: "The Infinite One has made everything beautiful in its time, and he's also set eternity in our hearts." Is it any wonder then that we want to climb upwards? For the lofty heights provide an awareness of hope, a seeing beyond our individual lives, and perhaps a knowing that is beyond our knowing. We want to learn of our Creator through her beautiful works like the mountains and vistas that challenge us. Father Richard Rohr is a modern-day mystic and a Franciscan priest who resides in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in a hermitage there. In his book called Falling Upward, he speaks of climbing spiritually into the silence of God. The silence of God, what is that? This is the calm, abiding joy, the peace of understanding that is beyond our knowing, or that deep well within us at the magnificence of a sunrise on an early morning. It's a connection with someone who really gets where we're coming from. It's looking into a puddle and seeing your face reflected in the mirrored, magnificent clouds above. It's a knowing that there's an infinite design to our lives, and you are an amazing part of it. It causes us to be still, the silence of God does, and in that stillness comes peace and joy. Richard also speaks of two distinct seasons in our life as we journey along. In the first half, We learn by growing and clinging to the roots of those who have gone before us. We walk in the shade of the mountains, but it's in the valleys where we learn what works and what doesn't work. We need this time to learn by doing, to listen to others who have gone before us, and then we can begin to take courage to climb our own mountains. Richard suggests that in the second half of life, the essence of who we really are meant to be begins to shine. There's no age limit to this, however, for I have met young ones who are wise beyond their years, having gone through some difficult times like cancer or family separations, and they see things from a young age with a different perspective. When our youngest son, Graham, was about 9, I believe he was thinking upward. For one day he asked his grandma, "Grandma, when I came down from heaven, did I bounce?" He was pondering things above his experience in a context that he could only understand. According to Richard Rohr, the second half of life experience, falling upward to God, reveals our true self. And that self is the one that questions. And yet we accept that sometimes the answers may not come. That's the one that seeks. And yet we enjoy the days as blessings that we're right where we need to be. And the suffering and the joy of living go together. We've been through some stuff, but God has seen us through. This true self creates and comes to an understanding that failures are a part of creating these pathways. In the first half of life, our false self, as Richard calls it, often rules our lives. We're busy and distracted, raising families and climbing corporate ladders. And we get caught up in the briars and bushes of that pathway, trying and failing and trying and rising again. It's those years when our spiritual life takes a beating and the climbing upward can be difficult. Our gospel passage reassures us that in every stage of life and in every experience, the divine Spirit is with us. As Jesus says, the Spirit will guide you into all truth. Even when it feels like we're struggling to know up from down, Spirit is with us. Some years ago, I was in the restroom at Stronach Arena, standing at the sink, when one of the other mothers on our hockey team rushed in looking pale and shaking like a leaf. And she held up a brown envelope and she blurted out, My husband just served me with divorce papers. Here. Now, how could he? The boys are on the ice, and they don't know. I didn't know her well, but in that moment it didn't matter. I just grabbed her sobbing form, and together we stood, feeling the searing pain of shale and loosened soil of her life, hitting both our shoulders and crashing to the darkened valley below. I couldn't think of anything profound to say, so I just hugged her in silence. And while the rocks of life crashed past her, after a moment, the blessed spirit of love and peace settled over us. And she shakily began to regain her footing, bruised and bleeding, but alive, and ready to face the next part of her climb. As we parted, I knew that she wouldn't go alone, and this was a new beginning on the road of her life. We don't take time in our early years to ponder our beginnings, and often life is a series of starting over moments when we must find that God-given inner strength. But in the climbing or the sliding, God is always there. Jesus was constantly falling upward. He drew strength from the Holy One that he called Abba, referring to his God as Daddy, a term of familiarity and intimacy and trust. Jesus often tramped the hillsides to find renewal in that silence. Our Bible reading has Jesus returning from one of these refreshing times on the mountain. He knew his time was short, and the disciples were going to be facing a hard climb and a new beginning, because soon he would be gone. So he encouraged them, saying, I have many more things to say to you, but you can't bear them now. But when the Spirit of truth comes, she will guide you into all truth. You can hear the longing in her voice. Oh, how I wish I could just unzip you and fill you full of God's wonder and wisdom and zip you back up and send you on your way. But life doesn't work like that, does it? Jesus knew that the mountains his disciples would climb had their own valleys of shadows attached to them, and he could only encourage their faltering steps with the good news that Spirit was with them. And this is the promise of Pentecost. Every breath we take and every move we make, God is with us. But most of life is not spent on the plateaus and high peaks. We have to go down. For the food is in the valleys. And that's where we spend the first half of life, trudging through the mountains of diapers and paperwork and mortgages and McDonald's drive-thrus, taking only what sustains us for the moment and staying in our own familiar valley. And that's okay for a time. But in those quiet moments, don't you find yourself yearning for the heights again? The freedom of adventure the disciples did. For God has set eternity in our hearts, and Pentecost is now. That's when climbing a mountain changes us. Looking back, we see the crooked roads of fun and family moments, and we also see the burned bridges and the paths to nowhere. And then almost as soon, our children have morphed from soothers to Star Wars. And we get to the part where we start murmuring, wow, when the kids move out, we're going to renovate, or we'll sell the house. We're going to have food in the fridge again, and gas in the car. You might feel you've reached the summit, like my granddaughter, standing fearlessly on the edge of Mount Burundi, or you might feel the bruises and scrapes and the sweat of the Band-Aids of your journey. So let's pause and take a deep breath. For now. Sometimes we hesitate and falter at the edge, gazing and wonder, how do I get down from here? Where do I go? Let's remember that our scars are a testimony to the wisdom we've gained, and a reminder that the Spirit will see us through. As Hazel stands, face turned to the wind, facing her 7-year-old, looking out with her 7-year-old self, she doesn't understand or comprehend, but I sense the driving force of life within her that our Creator gives us all. And the answer floats on the wind, whipping our hair into our eyes and on the summit of our mountains. It gifts us with a wisdom that affirms the essence of who we are. That woman in the hockey arena, she faced her mountain with much courage, and she's moved on to climb again with her boys, together facing the wind. I end with the dream I had a few years ago when I was struggling up the treacherous path of depression, with pain in every step. I dreamed that I was toiling up a mountain. And as my steps got slower and slower, people started to pass me by, and they went up and they went over the edge of the ridge and disappeared. I couldn't get over to the top, and I woke up disturbed and afraid, and I shared the nightmare with Bob that morning. The next night, Bob had a dream too. He dreamed he was on the same mountaintop, and he was looking down, and he reached out to help me up over the rocky ridge, but he couldn't quite reach me. closer and up into his grasp. And looking down below me, he saw the faces of many nations. And they were supporting me with their hands, and they were pushing me up. This dream reminds me that our great loving Creator and Jesus the Christ, who gave us a mountaintop glimpse of God, it's their hands of grace that gently hold us all. We are not just one. We are many. And as we reach out to help, we find we stand on the shoulders of another, all falling upward, all being given abundant life and vistas of glory where we can fly. So what mountain will you climb this week? Pentecost is here. Take the hand of a friend and put your face to the wind. It's waiting.